Welcome to Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm Cary Quashen along with my co-host, Michael Duarte. Michael, how are you today?
I'm good, but it's a little nippy out there today.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I actually love it. I put my jacket on, I feel real good. I would much prefer to be able to put a jacket on than to have to run through an air conditioning. So
that's your New York background.
Yeah,
right?
That's my New York background. And to tell you what, it's wintertime. We should be cold, so it feels good. And the rain was awesome.
Well, it makes the season a little more accurate, right?
By the way, why don't you introduce our guest?
We've got a special guest with us today. He's been with us before
many times.
Great guest, Larry Schaller.
Larry Schaller. We love when he's here.
How you doing, Larry?
Nice to see you, and I agree. It's nice to have a little winter weather.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah, it makes you feel like, hey, it's holiday season.
I'm telling you, I was driving last night. I went to see Charlie Daniels.
Wow.
And what a great show. And in the rain, I mean, I was enjoying it.
Hey, he can play that fiddle a little bit.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I've seen a lot of shows. I've never seen anyone play a fiddle like that. 79 years old.
It goes to show you, just keep getting better with age.
You do, because it was absolutely amazing. But just to go backwards for a minute, Families in Action is brought to you by your local hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We've been on the air about 13 years, so thank you so much for allowing us to give the message that we do. And also Action Family Counseling, which is full treatment for alcohol and drug abuse from residential to outpatient. And the Foundation, which is our nonprofit, which goes into schools and does all kinds of exciting stuff.
And you got that really neat vehicle sitting over there by your headquarters. The Experience.
It's ready. It's just about ready to be pulled out.
I haven't seen the inside of that. Have you?
I haven't seen the inside. I've seen it as I've driven by. We've obviously talked about it on the Blue Ribbon Task Force. We're excited about it. We're ready. We're ready anytime you're ready.
Yeah, it's real close. That's all. It's really close. It's been a real work in progress, but it's real close and it's real exciting. It's going to be one of the only things like it.
Yeah, so it's a one of a kind.
It's a one of a kind.
A brainstorm of Carl.
A brainstorm of Carl's. That's right.
That's right.
I was going to mess with Carl, but I won't.
Oh, you won't? Okay.
No. Hey, I'd say he gets lucky sometimes.
We should say he actually has a thing or two to do with KHTS, doesn't he?
He sure does, and us being over here. So that's pretty awesome.
Cary, I got something for the action file here. And you're going to be familiar with this because actually you're quoted in this.
Uh-oh.
Methamphetamine continues to be one of the top 3 most frequently reported drugs in Los Angeles County, according to recent statistics. And you said, and I've heard you say this before, I was going to say it's making a comeback, but it actually never left.
It mind boggles me when people said it's making a comeback because it's never gone anywhere. It's clearly taken a back seat a little bit to opiates. Mm-hmm. Because what happens when it comes to substance abuse and drugs? There's trends. I mean, things are in today. They kind of and here's why there's trends is methamphetamine. Let's take that for instance. It was so off the hook that 90% of everyone that called us for residential treatment or outpatient was methamphetamine. So that meant it was blasted all over the media. People were screaming methamphetamine kills, it rots your teeth, people in prison have bones. Go on and on and on. So people got scared.
And they go to something else, but they don't.
Right. Yeah. So they back off of the meth. Then the opiates come around, which they've been here forever, but all of a sudden it's more of a designer drug because you can smoke the stuff now. Right. So it's not like I'm going to shoot heroin and it's a hype in the corner. These are upper middle class people that are now smoking it because it's a designer deal and they're not feeling like junkies. So right now, there's more and more deaths when it comes to the opiate again. So we're losing, 43,000 a year? Every hour, 5 people are dying from an overdose.
While this show is on.
But let's get it straight. That's not heroin.
Right.
That only accounts for, out of the 43,000, about 8,000. The other is prescription pills, and I'm talking the Vicodin, the Oxys, the Roxys, all the codeine pills, the benzos,
all the painkillers,
the painkillers, and all the other pills, the anti-anxiety stuff too. So that's where all the deaths are coming from. So now people are screaming opiates. Oh my God, everyone's dying. So you're seeing more meth. So the trend starts switching around again. So the bottom line is the message we need to give to our communities and our children and our world is all drugs kill. And if we can figure that out, that if you use cocaine, it's bad. If you use opiate, it's bad. If you use crystal meth, it's bad. If you start with pot, it's got to start somewhere. And I'm not saying that all people who smoke marijuana turn into heroin addicts, but I'll say this, almost every heroin addict I ever met started with pot.
There's obviously some relationship there.
Yeah.
So.
And it's the contracts that we break as we grow up. You know, when we're kids, we say we'll never smoke cigarettes. We smoke a cigarette. It's only a cigarette. I'll never smoke pot. Well, it's not even a drug. It's only pot. So, I mean, and then we just start breaking our contracts. So, bottom line is if we can get our children to make a contract really and hardwire it, all drugs are bad. All drugs lead into a dark, gloomy place that we don't want you to go. We can kind of win the war better than fighting it when they're using it already.
You know, we were talking a couple of weeks ago with Pam from Henry Mayo, Pam Geyer, and we were talking about painkillers, and I wanted to let Larry know something that we discovered when we were researching that a little bit. This is an astronomical number. Hold on to your hat for this one.
Yeah.
The cost of painkillers to our society, this is just the United States of America, but in terms of hospital costs, in terms of lost work and productivity, every year, $630 billion with a B dollars, which breaks down to $2,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States every year.
Wow, that's a huge number.
Isn't that amazing?
And it speaks to the need to sort of address this issue early and not wait for bad things to happen, not wait for addiction to set in. We need to work earlier on helping kids to cope with the stresses of life, identifying what's going on with them early so that they find appropriate ways to deal with whatever it is, depression or a family stress or economic stress or peer pressure, bullying, whatever goes on in their lives. If they can figure out other ways to manage those stressors than reaching for, whatever drug their choice is, we might be able to save some of that money. But it's hard to convince some people.
And some of those lives.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It's just hard to convince the folks that putting funds on the front end is going to save you on the back end. It's one of those classic.
How do you do it? It's like the battle we have with the insurance companies. I mean, I've been in this field for 30 years. And 30 years ago, there was no word of managed care. No one knew what that was, or HMO. Mm-hmm. So what happened is somebody needed treatment. They stayed in treatment. If it was 30 days or 4 months. Now, granted, people took advantage of that. But people got better. Now, I mean, when we get somebody with insurance, and I own rehabs, and we want to put them in, first we have to convince the insurance that they even need to be there. And then it's a daily battle. So they want them out day one. And we want them in there for at least a month. So it's a real struggle, and we're losing a lot of people because it's so hard to get treatment.
Yeah, it's similar with all kinds of treatment. Physical therapy, if you have like a very serious medical injury, often the insurance companies, want to get you out of inpatient or transitional care as soon as possible. And if you're not like really sophisticated or pretty assertive, it's hard.
You're home and you just had an operation yesterday.
Right. So it's across the board, but you can see how with drug and alcohol, it can really have some disastrous short and long-term effects.
And the other problem is that because people aren't getting treatment, there's a lot of stuff going on now let's do the physical part first. When people leaving hospitals, they just had an operation, they were on Demerol or a morphine drip yesterday, and then they go home with a bottle of pills. It ain't going to work.
Right.
So they need to take more and more pills to ease the pain, but in a few days they're already physically addicted to it. So there's another whole issue. So we're treating all these people that are accidentally addicted to drugs.
Right.
Yep.
It's a serious issue. I think
Yeah.
we're making some progress with some of our outreach and education.
Yes.
Especially young people now know that, this is kind of a dead end. If you keep taking this opiate or that opiate, you get into your grandmother's prescription medicine cabinet. Eventually, you're going to get addicted. So if we keep getting the word out, but we have to get the word out to the grandmothers and the aunts
and everyone else.
That you got to keep that stuff.
Almost
locked
all
up.
the children, I want to say this, I really want people to hear this. Almost all the children, I mean kids 25 and under, how's that we're treating for opiate abuse, when we ask them where they're getting their pills, almost everyone says the same thing: the medicine cabinet.
Right.
Their father, their mother, their grandparents, their aunt, their uncle, somebody had some kind of deal and had these pills, and they're sitting there.
We had somebody in here on the show the other week who was surprised to hear that people were actually going to open houses just so they could say, "May I use the restroom?" and go into the bathroom and go through the medicine.
Oh, wow,
cabinet
that's a new one on
to
me.
see. Oh, it's new for you
That's
as
new.
well.
I never heard
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Last couple of years, it's been
Wow.
very big.
Awesome.
Yeah, so-
I mean,
Even some of the brokers now are telling their clients to
Empty out
the
well, they
medicine cabinets.
certainly should. Maybe we need to do some outreach to brokers and just
We
let them
do.
know that this is an issue now.
Oh, we do.
You know, Cary, we introduced Larry.
In fact,
but
you know what? I want to do a show on that. I want to bring some brokers on.
Great. Good idea.
find out if they're up to speed with that. We introduced Larry, but there may be 5 people out there that don't know what his
But
background
before
is.
we even do that, I want to say one more thing, and then we'll hold the suspense for Larry. Larry also said something else that was super important. He says lots that are important.
Oh, yes,
But I just want to, before I forget to go there, he says we got to teach our children when they're young, so they don't depend on drugs for feelings. When we're treating people in our adult programs, the most important thing we have to teach people when we're treating them is how to feel. Because as soon as they get that feeling of depression, that overwhelming urge of getting loaded comes because they don't know how to deal with it. As soon as they get that feeling of anger, that overwhelming urge of getting loaded comes. As soon as they get that feeling of happiness, they want to feel good, they want to party. So they don't even, people when they start using drugs at a young age really don't know how to cope with life, period. When it comes to
It makes
feelings.
total sense. I mean, those feelings of anxiety and depression are very painful feelings. Feelings of emptiness or feelings of being oppressed or, traumatized in a family situation or even on the schoolyard. Those are really tough feelings to feel. Embarrassment, humiliation, shame. They're really tough.
They are.
And going to drugs and alcohol and other kinds of coping. We've been lately talking about human trafficking and gangs and all kinds of dysfunctional ways of coping. They end up being able to kind of cover those feelings up.
And they actually, here's the scary part of that, they do work for a minute.
Sure.
They work for a while. They
Sure.
work until they stop.
Right.
And when they stop working, then you're really in trouble.
And they totally arrest development. That's the thing that's really sad, that they'll start, when they're 12, 13, and now they're 21. And all those years, if y'all remember what those are very important years, learning how to deal with everything you have to deal with between ages of 13 and 21. If you never had that opportunity,
Right.
you've lost the peers, you've lost that developmental maturation process, and you're stuck, and you need a program like Action to sort of make up the time.
You do, and sadly, we get people in their 60s, 70s that are coming into treatment that've been drinking or using for all their life, and now they're lost. I mean, they don't know how to cope with life on life terms, their feelings. They don't know where to place them. If they're happy, they got to party. If they're angry, they got to take something to make them feel better. So it's a lot of work. It really is. So the sooner we intervene in somebody's life when they're doing anything negative, drugs, depression, whatever it is, the better.
Right.
And all statistics prove that, by the way. Statistics say the earlier the better.
we're actually, with Michael and some of the city folks and our local providers, we're actually working on developing a program for parents of sixth graders. So we teach those parents coping skills that they may not have, but more importantly, those parents can teach their kids coping skills and alternatives to drugs and alcohol and so forth. So when they get into the middle school and all that stuff, if you remember, needing to be like everybody else and dealing with bullying and everything else that goes on, identity and adolescence and sexuality, if they know how to cope, they have coping skills, we'll have a shot. But it's like you said, it's on the front end that's really important as well as the back end. So.
The earlier we teach kids these tools that you're talking about, the better shot they have out of being successful.
Right.
And the other scary thing is, due to our times, and I know we have another place we want to go, but the other scary thing about our times is the average parent spends 2 to 10 minutes with their teenage kid.
Yeah, it's tough, especially out here in Awesome Town. Everybody's working and working hard, and a lot of people are commuting, downtown or into the valley, and it's tough, You got youth sports, and you've got ballet, and you've got gym, and you've got schoolwork and homework and dinner, and, it's hard to make that quality time really count and teach coping skills and be there for kids when they come home and say, I've been bullied, or whatever.
Cary, what is that? I mean, tell us what you talk about this time frame. What happens when somebody comes home?
Well, it's really the same thing. I mean, think about this for a second. All our children has phones. So the last thing a kid, probably at 12 years, I'm going to be optimistic. 12 years old and up. Last thing they do before they go to sleep, the very last thing is to check their social media. So they go to sleep with their friends. The first thing they do when they wake up in the morning, before they use the restroom, this is almost every kid. That's not the minority. This is the majority.
And it's becoming every adult, just to let you know.
Yes. No, I agree with that. So before they use the restroom, when they wake up, they check their social media. Then they go to sleep with their friends. They wake up with their friends. They go to school. They're with their friends all day. They come home. In most homes, everybody's working, if the parents are even living together. So do they come home to an empty house? No. Even if the house is empty, they're still with their friends' social media. So now they're spending 16, 17 hours a day with their buddies. We come home as a parent. We say, how was your day? It was good. How was school? It was okay. Do you have any homework? I done it. Are you hungry? I ate. That's the communication most parents are having with their kids today. Then you go to a restaurant and you walk through the restaurant and everyone's holding their phones. The moms are checking their Facebook to see how many likes there were. The dads they're doing whatever they're doing, and the kids are talking to their friends again. So when we're together, we're not together. Larry, what do we do?
Wow.
Am I right?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I think some of it is just being mindful of what you just said. Because if parents aren't mindful of that, then they're just caught up in that wave of what we're doing in our culture right now, which isn't all bad. But we really want parents to have the message that this is really not the way to communicate with your kids, and you really want to find some time, some way. And some of it's like just learning. Like I had
communicating with the kids. They
kids.
Text each other through the house now.
Oh yeah. Oh,
People.
they'll text each other in the back seat.
Right. Exactly.
If you're taking them to school with their friends in the carpool, they're texting each other because they don't want to say,
their parents to know,
hey, your dad is really goofy, whatever. Or my dad, like, I'm so embarrassed by my father. Right. They'll text that to each other.
No kid has ever been embarrassed by their father.
Never. But if you just kind of take the time to say, hey, find the time. Like for instance, I had 2 sons and a daughter. One of my sons, I knew that in the morning was when he was the most available to me, And my other son, 11 o'clock at night, he'd be sitting around, and for some reason at that time is when he felt like talking. If I tried to talk to him in the morning, it was like, hey, I'm studying, but the other one is gone at 9. He's down in bed. But if you're up early, he's up early, you're having your cup of coffee, he's hanging around, and he wants to talk about what's going on. So you do have to learn the different personalities, different ways, different times. Maybe your kid's best talking in the car, on the way home from school, on the way to school. So you just sort of be mindful of, hey, I need to find that time to really know what's going on,
Right.
and find how they communicate best and when they communicate best.
Yeah, be willing to communicate at their level too.
Exactly.
Because I'll tell you what, I mean, I know that if I want to communicate with my kids, sometimes I'll text her because she does texting. So I'm going to go down and do it the way what works for her.
That's right. That's really important point. Some kids, I think almost all kids don't even answer their phone anymore.
Yeah, it's all
but they'll
text.
text.
Exactly.
And so you better be willing to text. You know.
And that's where we are today. Hey, Michael, guess what time it is?
It's time to text our way into a break.
It is. I want you to do that.
We'll be right back with our special guest, Larry Shallert. We're going to be talking about the holiday blues. So get ready. We'll be right back right after this.